Flames turned the sky over Millbridge to a molten orange, casting harsh shadows across the rows of tired brick houses and the hulking skeleton of the Shah family steelworks. Sirens wailed. Smoke curled over the river, choking the night. Inside the gates, chaos. Workers racing to douse the fire, neighbors shouting, the clang of metal against concrete. Priya Shah ran barefoot across the lot, lungs raw from the smoke. She could hear her little sister, Anjali, crying inside the offices, trapped, terrified. Without thinking, Priya plunged through the back door, dodging falling beams, desperate to reach her. She found Anjali huddled beneath a desk, eyes wide with terror. "Come on, baby! Come on!" Priya scooped her up, covering her face with a damp kerchief, and together they bolted through the maze of flame and shattered glass, out into the night. Outside, the air was chaos. Priya clutched her sister, blinking back tears. She saw her parents, her mother wailing, her father barking orders at firefighters. The extended family, uncles and aunts and cousins, gathered in a knot, their faces mask-like with shock and suspicion. The blaze raged for hours. By dawn it was over. The steelworks, heart of the Shah family's pride for 3 generations, was a blackened ruin. As the sun rose, the accusations began. It started as a whisper. Priya was there late, painting. She's always distracted, always chasing that art nonsense instead of helping the family. Her uncle, her father's eldest brother, the self-appointed patriarch, rounded on her. "What were you doing in the offices after hours? Why did you need to be there, Priya? We told you to leave that nonsense behind. You bring shame to us all." Priya shook with fury and fear. "I was looking for Anjali. She was inside. I saved her. Don't you see?" But her words fell like ash. Her brother Rajiv, the favorite, kept his gaze averted. Her mother sobbed, but did not defend her. Priya saw it in their eyes. They needed someone to blame, and she was the easiest target. By the end of the week, the official report, a few hastily typed lines, listed the cause as negligence. A forgotten candle, unattended paints, Priya's paints. Insurance refused to pay. Creditors circled. The Shah family business teetered on the brink, and the family's whispers grew crueler. "You always were the selfish one, Priya. Always chasing dreams. Now see what you've done." Her father summoned her to the parlor, surrounded by elders. The verdict was swift, cold. "You are no longer welcome in this house. You will not see your sister. You will not speak of this again. Go, and do not return until you've learned what it means to serve something bigger than yourself." Her mother pressed a small envelope into her hand. Barely enough money for a bus ticket and a few days' food. No embrace. No goodbye. Anjali was kept hidden, her bright face nowhere to be found. Priya wandered the edge of town, suitcases dragging in the dirt, her sketchbook clutched like a lifeline. She looked back only once, saw her father staring from an upstairs window, his face unreadable, closed. That night, Priya slept under a bridge, the roar of the river echoing the confusion in her chest. She traced the lines of her own hands, so skilled at drawing, so useless at mending what was broken. Every memory, birthday parties in the kitchen, Anjali curled beside her with crayons, the clang of steel, felt like a wound. Yet even in exile, Priya promised herself, this would not be the end. If her family needed a scapegoat, she would bear it, but not forever. She would find a way back, not to beg forgiveness, but to prove that her fire would not be extinguished. Far away, as dawn colored the sky with hope and smoke, Priya whispered to herself, "No more ashes, only new beginnings." Philadelphia was nothing like Millbridge. Its streets pulsed with music and argument. Its people hustled and cursed and laughed in a dozen languages. Priya stepped off the bus into a world of stone steps, graffiti, and distant city lights, the taste of rejection bitter on her tongue. For weeks, she drifted, sleeping in shelters and church basements. Her small envelope of cash vanished quickly. Bus fares, bad coffee, a padlock for a battered storage unit. Her sketchbook became both shield and weapon, a record of what she'd lost and what she still wanted. She painted to eat at first, portraits on cardboard, names and faces in the margins of city parks. On South Street, she bartered a mural for a week's rent in a crumbling apartment. She painted lost pets for lonely grandmothers, bright sunflowers on the concrete walls outside soup kitchens. Slowly, color returned to her days. Priya learned the code of survival. Which corner stores would let her sleep in the back for a free mural? How to charm city cops with jokes and art, buying time when she had nowhere to go. That generosity often came from those who had the least. It was a band of children that changed everything. One rainy afternoon, as she chalked a lion's face on a playground wall, 3 kids watched. Silent, suspicious, hungry. The oldest, Malik, asked, "Can you draw a dragon?" She did, quick and bold, letting him color the scales. The other kids crowded close, giggling as Priya handed them stubby pieces of chalk. That night she saw them sleeping in the shelter stairwell. Malik, his sister, and a girl named Josie. They flinched at her approach, but Priya offered a bag of day-old bread and a story. "My sister and I used to draw together. Where's your family?" Malik shrugged. Face shuddered. "Ain't got none. You got a place?" Priya hesitated, then nodded. "A little one. We can share." In the months that followed, Priya's tiny apartment became a haven for lost kids and tired artists. She juggled murals, dishwashing jobs, odd commissions, enough to feed a growing ragtag family. She taught Malik to paint cityscapes, Josie to sketch flowers. Her living room walls a riot of color and hope. Word spread in the shelters. "The artist lady will feed you if you help paint." Priya's home became an open studio, a soup kitchen, a classroom for dreamers. She learned to listen to stories of foster care, runaways and lost parents. Her own grief reflected in every scar and laugh. But life was never easy. Priya fought eviction twice. Sometimes there wasn't enough to eat. When Malik disappeared for days, she searched the parks until he returned, bruised but defiant. Priya kept painting, murals that bloomed across abandoned buildings, bursts of hope where there was none. On corners and alleyways, she scrawled a simple phrase, "No one gets left behind." One night, as she finished a mural of a phoenix rising over city rooftops, a reporter stopped her. "You're Priya, right? Word is your art is changing lives around here." Priya wiped paint from her hands. "It's not just me, it's all of us." The article ran online. From outcast to muse, how one artist is giving Philadelphia's lost children a voice. Donations trickled in. Art supplies, bags of food, even a little cash. Priya began to believe in possibility again. She remembered Anjali's laugh, the feel of a brush in her hand, the freedom of color after years of gray. Maybe she could build something lasting. Maybe exile was just another canvas. She couldn't yet imagine returning to Millbridge. The scars were still too fresh, the betrayal too raw. But in her found family, in each bright splash of paint, Priya started to see a future. One where her fire burned for others, not just herself. In the city's tangled heart, she was no longer just the girl who'd been exiled for a crime she didn't commit. She was the artist who turned ashes into color and strangers into home. The little apartment was never quiet, and Priya loved it that way. Mornings, the walls echoed with laughter and the clatter of mismatched mugs. Evenings, her windows glowed gold as kids and teenagers crowded together on the floor, sketching monsters, futures, and fragments of dreams onto whatever paper they could find. Priya made sure there was always space for one more. She never asked too many questions. Most kids stayed for a night or two, some for months. Each left their mark. Handprints in the hallway, jokes in the margins of sketchbooks, new rules of survival. It was Malik who said it first, his voice soft and certain, as he outlined a city skyline in blue. This isn't just a place. It's a way out. Priya nodded. That's the point. The world can take your home, your money, even your name, but it can't take what you create. With her makeshift family, Priya began organizing Saturday art workshops in the park. She lugged boxes of chalk and tempera across cracked sidewalks, spreading out tarps and inviting anyone, kids, parents, bus drivers on break, to join in. Her rule was simple. If you wanted to make something, you belonged. At first, it was a handful of children and curious passers-by. But week by week, the crowd grew. Older teens painted protest signs. Immigrant mothers drew memories of home. Malik and Josie, now her unofficial deputies, taught little ones how to turn handprints into birds and monsters, into heroes. Priya never pushed politics, but the art always spoke for itself. A mural bloomed along the playground wall. A brown-skinned girl in a sari, her arms wrapped around a group of smaller children. Above them, the words, "Write your own story." Social workers stopped by, impressed by the peace and energy. A teacher at the local high school invited Priya to run a lunchtime club. Reporters started calling her the street muralist changing the city. One child at a time. Online, photos of Priya's murals and classes began to spread. Hashtags like #ArtForFreedom and #NoMoreAshes lit up Instagram. Kids posted before and after shots. Crumbling walls transformed into explosions of color. Alleys once feared now, safe havens full of painted flowers and fierce, grinning faces. Some adults complained. Graffiti isn't art. She's making the neighborhood soft. But the tide turned as crime dropped around her murals, and city officials quietly gave her a permit. First for the park, then for a shuttered recreation center. Priya poured her energy into the new space. She and her crew swept up glass, painted rainbows on the walls, and built makeshift easels from scavenged wood. She wrote a manifesto in paint above the door. "This is your house. Your voice matters. Leave fear at the threshold." Kids from across the city found their way in. Some had run from foster care or violence. Others were just lonely or lost. Priya welcomed them all, feeding whoever showed up and sending them home with bags of groceries when she could. She started a tradition. Every new student painted a tile to add to the wall of stories. There were firebirds, broken hearts, superhero sisters, 1,000 versions of home. One afternoon, Priya stood before the wall, tears blurring her vision. Her own tile showed two sisters under a burning sky, one pulling the other to safety. Through all this, she wrote to Anjali. Letters she never sent. Sketches of a future they might one day share. Sometimes she wondered if her family watched her from afar, if her art reached even Millbridge's narrow, judgmental streets. But Priya didn't paint for her parents or her past. She painted for every girl who'd been told to obey. For every outcast who'd been made to believe their story didn't count. In the city, her name became a quiet password. You need help? Go to Priya. She was the artist, the rebel, the survivor, the proof that you could be cast out and still light up the dark. And as each mural went up, each child claimed a new part of themselves. Priya realized she was no longer running from the ashes. She was building something that could not be burned away. It was a message from home that shattered Priya's hard-won peace. She hadn't heard from Millbridge in almost 2 years, but the letter, pressed between art supply shipments, bore Anjali's careful handwriting. Didi, it began. They say I must marry Mr. Patel's son. He's older. Mama says it's for the family. I don't want this. I want to finish school to see you. They won't let me write again. Please help me. I remember your promise. I'm so scared. Priya's hands trembled, tears dropping onto the page. She pictured Anjali, always the peacemaker, the girl with wide brown eyes who loved comics and coding, whose laughter Priya once protected with silly drawings and late-night stories. Now, her little sister was a bargaining chip. One more girl sacrificed to pride, debt, and the Shah family curse. Rage and heartbreak battled in Priya's chest. She tried to call the old family number, but her mother hung up at the sound of her voice. Rajiv's social media showed nothing but business platitudes and staged family dinners. Anjali a pale, silent shadow at the edge of every photo. Priya reached out to other exiles from Millbridge, friends she hadn't dared contact in years. She learned Anjali was not alone. 2 other girls from their community had been sent away to good marriages in the last 6 months. One vanished to Chicago, another rumored to have run away and been disowned. Old friends wrote back in hushed tones. They say the Shahs are finished. The factory never reopened after the fire. Now your father borrows from everyone. He drinks too much. My cousin wanted to study medicine, but her parents found her a husband instead. They say it's our duty. No one dares speak up, Priya. We all saw what happened to you. Priya's fury burned, but so did her guilt. For years she'd pushed Millbridge out of her heart, protecting herself from its judgment and pain. She had rebuilt a family, ragtag but real, on the city's painted walls. But now, her own blood was trapped, calling for help. She knew the old rules. Family honor above all, obedience before desire. Sacrifice is what makes us strong, her father used to say, pride and threat in equal measure. She remembered the women at every family event. Eyes down, voices quiet, scars hidden under bangles and saris. She'd sworn as a child that she'd never let herself or her sister become another silent casualty. Priya met with Malik and Josie, her oldest students, now young adults, who knew her story better than anyone. She told them everything. The fire, the exile, Anjali's plea. Malik's jaw tightened. They want to break her like they tried to break you. Josie's eyes glinted. So, let's show them she's not alone. They can't lock her away if the whole world is watching. Priya's network sprang into action. A friend in media helped her trace the Patel family's business dealings. A lawyer from the Art Center found a loophole. Anjali, as a minor, could petition for her own guardianship if she could prove coercion. Josie built a secure chat for Anjali and Priya to communicate in secret, using code words and emojis. Priya began sending her sister stories and sketches again. Messages hidden in digital drawings, tips for recording conversations, reminders that bravery doesn't mean not being afraid. It means standing up even when you are. She learned that the upcoming wedding was being billed as a community celebration, a show of strength meant to quiet creditors and restore the Shah name. The family was recruiting other girls to serve as attendants, dressing up their own control as tradition and duty. But whispers of rebellion flickered beneath the surface. Several young women in Millbridge reached out to Priya online, hungry for a way out, desperate for hope. "If you come back, will you help us too?" one wrote. "We're so tired of being told to be quiet." Priya's resolve crystallized. This wasn't just about her sister, or even her family. It was about every girl told she was less than, every dream traded for a dowry, every spark smothered by fear. She packed her brushes and paints, tucking the last letter from Anjali inside her sketchbook. Before she left, she gathered her city kids together, promising to keep the art center running with Malik and Josie at the helm. "This isn't the end. It's the next mural. I have to go home and help someone who once saved me." The night before she boarded the train to Millbridge, Priya stood before her wall of stories, tracing the firebird she'd painted so long ago. For the first time since exile, she felt no shame, only purpose. She whispered, "No more broken girls, no more broken chains." And with that, she set out, no longer running from the past, but racing toward a future she would help create. Millbridge had not changed. The steelworks was still a gutted skeleton on the river, and the old row houses looked just as weary as when Priya left. Only Priya herself was different. Older, sharper, her eyes measuring everything as if she were painting the town's portrait, one broken window at a time. She arrived quietly, blending into the crowd at the Saturday market. Scarves, sunglasses, a second-hand jacket. No one recognized her at first, though a few neighbors looked twice, whispering behind hands. In a town like this, gossip ran faster than the train. She kept her head down, heart thundering as she approached her family's house. But she did not go home. Not yet. Instead, Priya found Anjali at the library just as planned. A note slipped through a trusted neighbor's window, a code they'd invented as children. Anjali sat at a back table, a heavy textbook open, but her eyes darted up, wide and luminous, the moment Priya entered. They embraced in silence, clinging like castaways. Anjali trembled as Priya stroked her hair. "I thought they'd taken you from me forever." Priya squeezed her hand. "No one can do that. Not really. I'm here, and I'm not leaving you alone again." They walked through the stacks, pretending to browse, speaking only in whispers. Anjali confessed everything. How the family pressured her, how her own mother's love had turned brittle with fear, how uncles and aunties made her feel like a debt to be paid off. "They say I'll save us if I do this, but I don't want to be saved this way," Anjali whispered. Priya pulled a small sketchbook from her bag. "Draw with me. No one's watching." At first, Anjali hesitated. But as Priya drew a bright sun, Anjali's hand moved, tentative lines becoming bold strokes. She drew herself, not in wedding clothes but in jeans and a t-shirt, standing before a canvas, free. Priya smiled. "You still remember how to dream?" "Only when I think of you," Anjali replied. "I don't know how to fight back." "Yes, you do," Priya said softly. "You just need to know you're not alone." In the days that followed, Priya wove herself back into the town's quiet resistance. She met with the girls she'd contacted online. Secret meetings in backyards and basements. each one a therapy session, a strategy huddle, a confession booth. Some had already tried to escape. One girl, Nisha, was caught booking a bus ticket and had her phone taken away for a month. Another, Samira, had been threatened with expulsion from school if she spoke out. But Priya's stories gave them courage. She taught them how to use encrypted messaging apps, how to document threats, how to speak up at the right moment. She gave them blank sketchbooks and told them, "Every dream you put on this page is a promise you make to yourself. It doesn't have to die here." Priya also built a network of adults. An old English teacher, the retired social worker, a sympathetic doctor. Quiet allies who agreed to watch out for the girls, to intervene if the pressure became too great. She was careful. Her father's friends watched her every move, and her mother's warning came one night in a hurried phone call. "They want you gone, Priya. They say you're poisoning the girls. They will blame you for anything they can." But Priya would not be frightened off. She wrote anonymous letters to the local paper, telling the story of a town where daughters are currency and silence is the first lesson taught. She posted murals in chalk on the walls behind the market. Firebirds, broken chains, girls running toward the sun. Her most important work, though, was with Anjali. They met each morning at the park, painting together before anyone else woke. Anjali's drawings grew stronger, braver. Her own face transformed from fearful to fierce. Priya taught her how to record family conversations, how to hide her phone, how to speak in metaphors when watched. "You don't have to be me," Priya whispered. "But you don't have to be what they want, either." As the wedding date loomed, the attendants confided in each other, passing notes and warnings. The seeds of revolt took root. Priya could see it. In their new defiance, in the nervous jokes, in the way girls stood up a little taller after art club. She knew the cost would be high, and she knew the family would fight back hard. But the truth was out. The girls of Millbridge, once so afraid, were no longer alone, and no longer silent. And as Priya watched Anjali sketch a phoenix with wings spread wide, she felt the fire inside her burning hotter than ever. Priya knew that in Millbridge, truth had always been buried under years of silence, shame, and whispered threats. But the world outside, especially the world of young people, wasn't as easily controlled. So she and Anjali decided, if their voices couldn't be heard in the town hall, they would carry them to the world. It started with one mural. Early one Saturday, before the town woke, Priya and a handful of girls painted a phoenix, half rising from fire, half made of shattered chains, on a crumbling wall near the steelworks. In big, defiant letters, they scrawled beneath it, "We are not sacrifices." They snapped a photo and posted it online. Malik, Josie, and the Philadelphia crew shared it across their networks, using the tag #Art Against Sacrifice. At first, the post gathered just a few likes, but then someone, a college student from out of state, a reporter from a feminist magazine, a popular teen TikToker, picked it up. By nightfall, the mural had gone viral. Priya watched the numbers tick upward in disbelief. Hundreds, then thousands, then tens of thousands of comments, shares, and DMs. Girls from across the country replied with their own stories, their own art, drawings of chains breaking, painted hands covering mouths, hopeful eyes staring straight into the camera. The momentum was contagious. Other murals appeared in nearby towns. A girl running through a burning field, dropping her wedding sari. Sisters standing together on a bridge, arms linked, a heart stitched back together, bold and bright. Anjali, emboldened, posted a video. Her face half in shadow, voice clear and brave. I am not a bargaining chip. I am not my family's debt. If you are trapped, you are not alone. Reach out. We will help each other. The video struck a chord. DMs flooded in from girls in similar situations, from immigrant communities as far away as California and Texas. Some wrote anonymously, others used art and poetry. The hashtag #NoMoreAshes trended for 3 days. Priya and her team moved fast. They built a website, part gallery, part hotline, part instruction manual. It explained, in simple language, how to document coercion safely, how to connect with local resources, how to use art to tell your story if you were afraid to speak. The attention drew allies. Women's rights lawyers offered pro bono help. Journalists called, wanting interviews. A national morning show producer invited Priya and Anjali to speak. The movement made Millbridge's elders furious. Anonymous accounts spread rumors. Priya's just seeking attention. She hates her family. The girls are being brainwashed. But every attempt to shut them down only amplified the message. City officials, uncomfortable but unable to ignore the storm, asked for a meeting with Priya. In the town itself, the effect was electric. Young people who had grown up watching their mothers and sisters suffer in silence began to speak out. A group of boys painted over a threatening message on the school wall, replacing it with, "Sisters, we see you." A teacher used the murals to launch a unit on social justice in art. Even girls who could not rebel openly found ways to signal solidarity. They wore red bracelets, quoted lines from the mural, or changed their profile pictures to a phoenix. The sacrifice wedding was suddenly under a microscope. Reporters called the Shah house. The would-be groom's family, uncomfortable with the publicity, considered backing out. Priya's uncle tried to blame outside agitators, but the town's old stories were no longer so easily contained. Priya knew she was being watched. Her father confronted her at the market. "You are destroying us. You bring shame. Enough." She met his gaze, calm and unbowed. "I am saving her. I am saving all of us. You just can't see it yet." That night, as Priya stood beneath her mural, now covered with flowers and candles left by silent supporters, she realized something beautiful. Her fire had become a wildfire. No one could put it out now. The backlash came faster and fiercer than Priya imagined. One morning, as she arrived at the mural to touch up fading colors, she found it defaced, splashed with black paint. A single word scrawled over the phoenix's wings. "Traitor." Her heart hammered, but she refused to flinch. With Anjali at her side, she scrubbed the wall clean, repainted the colors brighter than before, and posted a new photo with the caption, "You can't erase hope." But the war was just beginning. The Shah family, alarmed by the spreading movement and the scrutiny, now trained on their sacrifice wedding, circled the wagons. Priya's uncle called a meeting of the elders, inviting every influential family in Millbridge. They stood in the parlor, voices rising in anger. "She's poisoning our daughters. This ends now. We must make an example. No one will dare follow her. It's time to remind everyone where their loyalties lie." Within days, the campaign began. Whisper networks spread stories about Priya. She'd run away to hide a shameful secret. She was paid by Western media. Her art club was a front for rebellion and immorality. Flyers appeared on lampposts, urging families to keep their girls home and protect our values. Priya's old friends received threatening phone calls. "If you stand with her, you stand against us." Malik and Josie, running the Philadelphia Art Center, were doxxed online. Their landlord got a letter warning, troublemakers would lose their lease. One of the Millbridge girls, Nisha, was pulled from school and kept under watch after her parents saw her tagged in Priya's social media posts. At home, Anjali faced new restrictions. Her phone was confiscated at night. Aunties watched her at every event. When she tried to attend library study group, an uncle followed her, making pointed remarks about family honor and obedience. Priya herself was called to a family council. In a room heavy with perfume and judgment, her father demanded, "Apologize. Take down your art. Withdraw your accusations. If you do, we might forgive you." Priya looked around at the averted eyes of cousins, the trembling hands of her mother, the cold fury of her uncle. "I did nothing wrong. I only spoke the truth. I will not be silent." Her uncle's face darkened. "Then you will be cast out, not just from this family, but from our entire community. You will never see Anjali again." Priya left the house with a head held high, but her resolve wavered. Alone in the darkness, she wondered if she doomed her sister, her friends, everyone who dared hope. But hope, she realized, is a stubborn weed. Outside support grew. Lawyers reached out to offer protection. The #NoMoreAshes movement was picked up by a major podcast, bringing donations and media attention. Teachers quietly checked on the girls most at risk. Some of the town's younger mothers, once silent, now emboldened, began sending meals and secret notes. "I see you. Don't give up." Still, the pressure mounted. Malik's art center was vandalized. Josie's parents were threatened at work. Anjali's health faltered, stress making her pale and thin. Priya spent sleepless nights planning, worrying, praying she hadn't set off a fire she couldn't control. Then one night, a new message appeared on the mural, written in careful, shaky handwriting beneath the phoenix. "Thank you for giving us a voice. We are not afraid." Priya took a picture and sent it to Anjali. "See? We're not alone. We never were." With her family trying to break her, Priya found new courage. She doubled down, recording every threat, reporting harassment, sharing stories online with even more determination. The next art class had twice as many girls as before. Priya and Anjali understood. The old world would not go quietly. But their story, every girl's story, was too big, too bright, and too true to ever be erased. The little apartment was never quiet, and Priya loved it that way. Mornings, the walls echoed with laughter and the clatter of mismatched mugs. Evenings, her windows glowed gold as kids and teenagers crowded together on the floor, sketching monsters, futures, and fragments of dreams onto whatever paper they could find. Priya made sure there was always space for one more. She never asked too many questions. Most kids stayed for a night or two, some for months. Each left their mark. Handprints in the hallway, jokes in the margins of sketchbooks, new rules of survival. It was Malik who said it first, his voice soft and certain, as he outlined a city skyline in blue. "This isn't just a place. It's a way out." Priya nodded. "That's the point. The world can take your home, your money, even your name, but it can't take what you create." With her makeshift family, Priya began organizing Saturday art workshops in the park. She lugged boxes of chalk and tempera across cracked sidewalks, spreading out tarps and inviting anyone, kids, parents, bus drivers on break, to join in. Her rule was simple. If you wanted to make something, you belonged. At first, it was a handful of children and curious passers-by. But week by week, the crowd grew. Older teens painted protest signs. Immigrant mothers drew memories of home. Malik and Josie, now her unofficial deputies, taught little ones how to turn handprints into birds and monsters into heroes. Priya never pushed politics, but the art always spoke for itself. A mural bloomed along the playground wall. A brown-skinned girl in a sari, her arms wrapped around a group of smaller children. Above them, the words, "Write your own story." Social workers stopped by, impressed by the peace and energy. A teacher at the local high school invited Priya to run a lunchtime club. Reporters started calling her the street muralist, changing the city, one child at a time. Online, photos of Priya's murals and classes began to spread. Hashtags like Art for Freedom and No More Ashes lit up Instagram. Kids posted before and after shots. Crumbling walls transformed into explosions of color. Alleys once feared, now safe havens full of painted flowers and fierce grinning faces. Some adults complained. Graffiti isn't art. She's making the neighborhood soft. But the tide turned as crime dropped around her murals, and city officials quietly gave her a permit. First for the park, then for a shuttered recreation center. Priya poured her energy into the new space. She and her crew swept up glass, painted rainbows on the walls, and built makeshift easels from scavenged wood. She wrote a manifesto in paint above the door. "This is your house. Your voice matters. Leave fear at the threshold." Kids from across the city found their way in. Some had run from foster care or violence. Others were just lonely or lost. Priya welcomed them all, feeding whoever showed up and sending them home with bags of groceries when she could. She started a tradition. Every new student painted a tile to add to the wall of stories. There were firebirds, broken hearts, superhero sisters, 1,000 versions of home. One afternoon, Priya stood before the wall, tears blurring her vision. Her own tile showed two sisters under a burning sky, one pulling the other to safety. Through all this, she wrote to Anjali. Letters she never sent. Sketches of a future they might one day share. Sometimes she wondered if her family watched her from afar, if her art reached even Millbridge's narrow, judgmental streets. But Priya didn't paint for her parents or her past. She painted for every girl who'd been told to obey, for every outcast who'd been made to believe their story didn't count. In the city, her name became a quiet password. You need help? Go to Priya. She was the artist, the rebel, the survivor, the proof that you could be cast out and still light up the dark. And as each mural went up, each child claimed a new part of themselves. Priya realized she was no longer running from the ashes. She was building something that could not be burned away. The day of Anjali's wedding dawned grey and oppressive, the Shah house buzzing with anxious energy. Neighbors lined the street to gawk at the spectacle. White tents, gold garlands, the scent of cardamom and roses hanging thick in the air. The sacrifice wedding had become Millbridge's main event, a display not of joy, but of family power. Inside, Anjali sat before the mirror, swaddled in red silk and gold jewelry she did not want. Her hands shook as an aunt fastened heavy bangles at her wrists, but her eyes burned with determination. Priya, dressed simply and carrying her battered sketchbook, watched from the doorway, her heart pounding with pride and fear. Their parents had grown silent and strained in the weeks since the town's revolt. Priya's mother avoided her gaze. Her father brooded, hollowed out by shame and anger. No one spoke of the protests or the media outside, only of honor, duty, and what was expected. The house filled with relatives, some whispering encouragement, others hissing warnings. You, will save us," an uncle intoned, his voice a threat disguised as comfort. "Do not shame us. Do not break the vow." As the ceremony began, Anjali was led through the front garden, the eyes of family and strangers fixed on her. The groom's family waited, stiff and uneasy. Reporters milled at the curb, their cameras poised for drama. Priya walked beside Anjali, holding her hand like an anchor. Suddenly, Anjali stopped at the top of the steps. The murmurs died away. The priest began to speak, but Anjali's voice cut through the silence, strong and clear. "I cannot do this." A gasp rippled through the crowd. Her mother dropped the tray she was carrying. Her father's face twisted with disbelief. "I love my family," Anjali said, voice trembling but unbroken. "But I am not a solution for our debts. I am not a token for our pride. I am a person. I deserve my own future." Her words echoed against the stone walls, reverberating through decades of expectation and fear. Priya stepped forward, standing beside her sister. "No more sacrifices, no more broken girls. We choose ourselves." A moment of terrible silence followed. Then, from the back of the crowd, Nisha's voice rang out. "You're not alone." She stepped forward, joined by other girls who had painted, written, and dreamed alongside Priya and Anjali. Mothers and friends joined them, forming a living shield around the sisters. Reporters surged forward. Cameras flashed. The groom's family, scandalized, gathered their things and left in a huff. The town elders tried to reassert control, shouting threats about exile and dishonor. But the crowd, emboldened by truth, did not back down. A chant rose. "No more ashes, no more vows." A police officer, called to keep order, simply nodded at Priya and Anjali, his face quietly approving. "Let them speak. It's time." For the first time, Priya saw fear in her father's eyes, not of outsiders, but of losing the old power forever. Her mother, weeping, reached for Anjali, not in anger, but in helpless love. Priya squeezed her sister's hand. "We're here. You're free." In the days that followed, chaos rocked the Shah family and the wider community. Some relatives denounced Priya and Anjali. Others reached out in secret, confessing their own dreams and regrets. Anjali petitioned for her legal independence, backed by pro bono lawyers and a chorus of supporters. The planned sacrifice wedding became a national symbol, a line in the sand for girls everywhere who had been told to surrender their futures. In private, Priya's father raged and pleaded, cycling between shame and longing. But Priya knew the true battle had been won. Her sister was safe, her voice unbroken, and Millbridge would never be the same. For every vow broken, a new promise was born, not of obedience, but of freedom. The sisters, once divided by silence and shame, now stood side by side, the fire within them burning bright enough to light the way for others. After the wedding revolt, Millbridge was changed forever. The streets, once thick with secrets and side glances, now buzzed with arguments, apologies, and hesitant hope. Some neighbors crossed the street to avoid Priya and Anjali, but others, new allies, offered nods and quiet words of support. Every girl who had ever felt alone now knew her story mattered. For the Shah family, the storm was just beginning. In the wake of Anjali's public stand, child protection authorities launched a formal investigation into underage marriage and coercion. The national spotlight brought reporters, lawyers, and social workers to Millbridge's door. Financial scandals soon followed. Years of accounting tricks, shadow debts, and unpaid taxes at the shuttered steelworks were unearthed. The family's patriarch, Priya's uncle, was questioned for hours. Anonymous tips, some from former workers, some from relatives, helped authorities trace fraudulent loans and hidden accounts. The Shah house, once the symbol of their status, became a fortress under siege. Priya's father grew gaunt and angry. Her mother oscillated between frantic worry and exhausted resignation. The family's lawyer called a crisis meeting to plead for silence and compliance. But the younger generation, led by Priya and Anjali, refused to be cowed. Priya met with the new team of investigators, admitting to her presence at the factory the night of the fire. She told the truth. How she'd tried to save her sister. How she'd been blamed without evidence. Though some in the family urged her to lie or take the fall alone, she insisted, "I will not protect your secrets. I will only protect what's right." Local newspapers printed the whole story, painting Priya not as a traitor, but as a whistleblower. "Courage in the ashes," one headline read, showing her surrounded by girls at an art workshop. Donations poured in, as did offers from city officials and non-profits to help the girls who'd spoken out. But backlash lingered. Some elders still called for Priya's exile. Rumors swirled about lawsuits and police visits. When Anjali was harassed at the grocery store, a group of her friends formed an informal escort, refusing to let fear win. Meanwhile, with the factory permanently closed, the town finally faced its hard truths. The jobs were gone, the old rules were failing, and clinging to the past would not save anyone. Instead, Priya and her allies saw opportunity. She proposed converting the abandoned steelworks into a community center. Part shelter, part art studio, part skills workshop for kids and displaced workers alike. "Why should our legacy be shame?" she said at the city council meeting. "Let it be healing. Let's build something new from what was broken." To her surprise, the idea was met with real consideration. A local non-profit pledged funding. City officials promised permits. Priya, Anjali, and their growing circle of supporters held the first planning session in what had once been the mill's foreman's office. Its walls still charred, but alive now with laughter and dreams. Malik, Josie, and a vanload of Philadelphia art kids arrived to help clean, paint, and organize. Mothers brought food. Teachers offered lesson plans. A retired welder volunteered to teach metalwork. The old order was collapsing, but a new one was rising in its place. Priya's legal battles dragged on, but her pro bono lawyer assured her, "Your honesty and the town's support will help. No more scapegoats." The story, told on radio and TV, galvanized more donations, job offers, even housing for the kids Priya called her flock. For the first time, Priya felt the weight in her chest ease. She no longer had to fight alone, or in exile. She and Anjali, and every girl who had suffered in silence, were forging new paths out of the ashes together. One evening, as work crews hammered and laughter rang through the old mill, Priya stood at the edge of the property, looking out at the town she once feared. Anjali joined her, slipping an arm around her waist. "We're really doing it, Didi," Anjali whispered. "We're making something no one can take from us." Priya smiled, tears prickling her eyes. "We're free, Anjali, and we're never going back." The mill smokestack rose against the evening sky, not a monument to sacrifice, but a beacon of hope, lighting the way for a new mill bridge and a new generation unafraid to claim their future. The new Millbridge Community Arts Center opened quietly, but it didn't take long for the word to spread. The first morning, a handful of girls and boys showed up, some clutching battered sketchbooks, others simply curious, trailing their mothers or siblings. Priya greeted each one with a smile, handing out brushes, pencils, and the promise that what you make here is yours, always. The space itself was transformed. Where rusted conveyor belts once clattered, sunlight now spilled across easels and bright canvases. The walls, once stained by smoke, bloomed with murals, each one a patchwork of stories. Sisters breaking chains, phoenixes soaring above blackened steel, families laughing in fields of wildflowers. Anjali painted a corner herself, a riot of color and code, her tribute to every girl who chose her own freedom. Priya ran open studio hours, workshops, and even therapy art sessions in partnership with local counselors. Girls who had once hidden their drawings under mattresses now displayed them proudly at community exhibits. Kids from every part of town, old Millbridge families, new immigrants, even sons and daughters of elders who had once opposed Priya, came to learn, to laugh, and to share. Malik and Josie brought their Philadelphia energy, helping lead street art classes and spoken-word nights. Former steelworkers volunteered, teaching sculpture and metalwork. The town's retired art teacher became a fixture, brewing tea and offering gentle critiques. Mothers and fathers who had once feared Priya's influence now sat side by side with their children, tracing stories in chalk, learning how to listen and heal. With each passing week, the center grew busier, and the change in the community was visible. Bullying dropped at the high school. More girls stayed in school, joining debate and arts clubs. Parents who'd once preached only duty now asked about college, internships, and dreams. The murals spilled out onto the sidewalks, painting a new map of hope and possibility. Anjali, no longer a shadow, became Priya's partner in every sense. She taught coding and digital art, helped kids build their own websites and blogs, and started a mentorship program for girls interested in STEM. "If you can imagine it, you can build it," she'd say, her own experience proof of resilience. At the first end-of-year showcase, Priya stood on the makeshift stage, her heart pounding with gratitude, as dozens of children showed their parents what they had created. Paintings of mothers and daughters, sculptures of hands joined together, poems about leaving fear behind. The mayor gave a short speech, praising the center as a symbol of Millbridge's new beginning. But the real celebration came afterwards, as families gathered around tables, sharing food, laughter, and stories. Priya overheard one mother say, "I never knew how much my daughter loved to draw." Another hugged her, whispering, "Thank you for giving us back our girls." Priya knew the work was never finished. Some families still clung to old beliefs. There were setbacks, arguments, days when fear crept back. But now, no one had to face those days alone. The girls and boys of Millbridge had learned to wield their voices as well as their brushes. Late one night, Priya and Anjali walked through the empty center, pausing to admire the wall of stories. Hundreds of tiles painted with hope, loss, and new beginnings. Priya traced her favorite, a phoenix and two girls, hand in hand, stepping into the dawn. "I used to think revenge meant making them pay," Priya whispered. "But now I know. It means making sure no one else gets hurt the way we did." Anjali nodded, tears shining in her eyes. "We can't erase the past, but we can change what comes next." Together, they turned off the lights, locking up a space no one could ever take away from them. Outside, the murals glowed beneath the street lamps, silent testaments to survival, to forgiveness, and to the unbreakable power of art. Sunrise shimmered over the ruins of the old steelworks, gilding the bricks with light that felt softer, almost forgiving. It was the last Saturday of summer. Priya stood on the cracked concrete with Anjali by her side, paint on her hands and sweat on her brow. Around them, a dozen young artists, girls and boys who'd once been voiceless in Millbridge, waited in the cool blue hush, brushes ready. The time had come for the mural they'd planned all year, a vast painting that would stretch across the last standing wall of the mill. Not a memorial to loss or sacrifice, but a monument to survival and self-determination. Priya looked at the gathered crowd. Malik and Josie, now confident young leaders. Nisha, whose livestream had set a town free. Mothers and fathers, and girls who had escaped their own arranged futures. Neighbors brought ladders and lemonade. Old steelworkers delivered buckets of primer. Even the mayor showed up in jeans and a t-shirt, offering to help. Together they worked from sunrise to sunset, painting their histories, their griefs, their wildest hopes. Flames and chains and broken rings melted into images of open doors, children running in meadows, sisters arm in arm, a phoenix soaring above it all. Anjali led a team of digital artists who live-streamed the mural's creation, letting girls and women across the country add their own digital brushstrokes, flowers, messages, shooting stars. As the day wore on, the wall became a living testament, not to one person's revenge, but to a collective rebirth. Each participant painted a small self-portrait among the larger figures. Each wrote a single word: freedom, courage, dream, voice, fire within. In the final hours, Priya added her own touch, a small image, just above a window frame. Two sisters, hands clasped, walking away from a burning building, their faces turned toward the sunrise. When the work was finished, the whole community gathered to celebrate. Music, food, and laughter filled the space, where only echoes and regrets had lingered before. People danced, embraced, shared stories, the boundaries of old tradition crumbling with every smile. Priya stood at the center of it all, letting the joy soak into her bones. She saw her father at the edge of the crowd, watching silently, then turning away. Not in anger, but in quiet surrender. Her mother, tearful but proud, hugged Anjali and whispered blessings for both her daughters. Reporters snapped photos, and the story made headlines far beyond Millbridge. Phoenix rises, small town, reborn by girls who refuse to burn. The mural's live stream trended across continents. Messages poured in from girls in distant cities and villages. I see myself in you. You gave me courage. I'm not alone. As twilight fell, Anjali climbed up beside Priya, beaming. You did it, Didi. We did it. No one can take this from us. Priya smiled, feeling the weight of all she'd lost and all she'd helped make possible. We set ourselves free, Anjali. And we helped others find their fire, too. The crowd sang together as the sky darkened, their voices rising over the river, echoing from the steel bones of the town. In that chorus, Priya heard the truth. The sweetest revenge was never about destroying the old world. It was about creating the new. Hand in hand with Anjali, surrounded by friends and family of her own choosing, Priya watched the mural glow under the streetlights. It would stand long after the last old promise faded. Proof that in every broken girl, every banished dream, the fire within could light up the world. And so the story ended where it began, among the ashes. But this time, it was not a tale of sacrifice or shame, but of freedom, community, and love that could never again be silenced.